Welcome, everyone. I'm grateful that you've made the time to be here today. I will briefly introduce myself and I will tell you a little bit more about what we are going to do in this session just in a moment. For the benefit of people that have not been to one of my sessions before, I am Francois Kutsia. I'm a leadership coach. I'm an NLP trainer and coach. I'm also an accredited coach with the International Coaching Federation, or ICF, as they are more commonly known. Now, if you've not come across NLP before, NLP is an acronym for Neuro Linguistic Programming, and NLP encapsulates methods and patterns of behavior, patterns of communication, and modeling skills to enable anyone that's an NLP practitioner to replicate any success skill or behavior. I'm not defined by NLP. It's one of the skills that I've acquired over time. My passion for learning new and novel skills has created a really odd habit in my life, and I've been following this habit for many years. Every year, I will attend a training course on a topic or a skill that is totally outside of what I know and do for a career. And I call this my intellectual holiday. It is the first thing that I plan every year. Now, along the way, I've done training courses on creative thinking, on knife making, on leatherwork, on pump design, and many other different skills. And the only qualifying criteria that I have for a new skill is that I've never done it before and that I have no or little knowledge about it. The benefit of doing something like this is that I continuously learn new and usable skills. I'm constantly creating new neural patterns and behaviors. And of course, I meet many interesting people. And along the way, this intellectual holiday has powerfully shaped what I do for a living. And it is this journey that initially brought me to NLP, to coaching, and of course, hypnosis. My interest in using hypnotic techniques started way back in 2007 when I did a training course on Ericksonian hypnosis as part of an NLP practitioner training course. This training course led to several other hypnosis specific training courses until I finally certified as a hypnotherapist. I don't actively practice as a hypnotherapist, but I am fascinated by the everyday application of hypnotic techniques and especially how to apply it in helping people transform. A number of the techniques I will refer to today are inspired and adapted from the many teachers I've trained under. And there's a couple that I want to just highlight, and they are most notably Robert Dilts, Stephen Gilligan, Win Winger, and John Overderf. I want to express my gratitude for their teachings and, of course, the person and the coach I became because of it. Let's start with an overview of what we will discuss in the session and then, of course, in the subsequent sessions over the next few weeks. Now, as not everyone here is practicing as a coach, I will start with some introductory concepts for today's session, and that will set us up for more advanced topics over the next few weeks. We will start and we'll talk about the structure of a coaching session, and we'll also talk about the structure of a hypnosis session. And then, more specifically, we will explore what we can learn from hypnosis that we can apply to coaching. I'm going to spend time on 3 simple techniques that you can take away. And after practicing it, you can then use it in your own coaching or in your own self coaching sessions. In the next few weeks, I'm planning to have sessions on the following topics. The first one is timeline travel. And this is a technique that allows us to explore an event either in the near future or in the far future. This technique is all about experiencing and anticipating how a future event may successfully play out. Then, image streaming. This is a technique that enables us to tap into the power of the unconscious mind and then learn from the images that our unconscious mind will stream to us upon request. Then I'm going to do a session on quantum jumping. It allows us to explore the metaphor of a parallel existence and learn from that. Then I'm also planning a session around using metaphor and story. Metaphors and stories are powerful tools that allows us as coaches to teach, to create parallel analogies, and of course create trance in our coaching clients. I will also run a session on attention shifting. And attention shifting is about playing around with the parameters of time, matter, and space. And by doing that, we can create really vivid experiences to support our coaching clients in creating transformation in their lives. I will have a session on guided visualization. Now, guided visualizations is a fun technique to help clients explore their unconscious thoughts and expertise. And in that session, we will use a creative thinking exercise called Over the Wall, which takes the shape of a guided visualization, which uses the unconscious mind to present us with answers or clues to questions we have. We will also, in that session, discuss the general structure and shape of guided visualizations as a meditative coaching experience. And then finally, we'll have a session on covert hypnosis and language patterns. And this will be the last session in the series. And we will spend time on the efficiency of language patterns that will allow us to facilitate and increase coaching clients' motivation for change. You can either enjoy the session today on its own, or you can join me for any and all of these sessions. Each of the sessions beyond today will be separate standalone lessons. Today gives you a foundation, and then you can choose any of the other sessions, or you can attend them all. Also, you don't have to worry if you miss one or two of the sessions along the way, because each session is designed to be a lesson on its own. So let's start with the question: why do I want to use hypnotic techniques in my coaching? According to the ICF's coaching model, coaching is about focusing on the client's present state and facilitating them to take action to achieve an agreed outcome as a method to empower that client. What we do with hypnotic techniques is the following: they are useful to bring a client to a state of mindful presence, and by bringing them to mindful presence, we can then deepen that presence into a state which opens other modalities of thinking, especially those that gives us access to the unconscious thoughts and behaviors. It allows for a much richer, creative, and problem solving experience. And it ends up being a lot more thoughtful and inclusive. And that approach leverages not only the conscious thinking, but also the unconscious capabilities. We often have deep seated beliefs that cause us to behave in unusual or self limiting ways. And almost always, those are driven from unconscious values and beliefs. This behavior often occurs when we make value based judgment, or if we rely on habitual instincts, which causes involuntary action. An example: you may not ask for a raise, or you may not pursue a promotion simply because of an unconscious belief that you are not ready yet, or even worse, it will be offered to you when your boss or other people recognize your value. We are often limited by beliefs like those, which we just accept as the truth, and we never ever question those. And these are typically the kind of beliefs that we want to change in coaching. I can give you an example from my recent past. There was an opportunity that came up, and I chose not to pursue it because I thought I needed more knowledge and skills before I would be able to make a success of it. And interestingly enough, I had the knowledge and the skills, but I believed that I needed more knowledge and more skills. I believed I wasn't good enough. And now that opportunity is gone. It actually went to someone that had a lot less knowledge and skills than I did. But because I had this belief about myself, that opportunity is no more. It may return one day or not, but for this moment, it is gone, and I will never know if I could have made it. Now, when we decide to use hypnotic techniques in our coaching, it is so that we can bypass these seemingly rational impulses and instead use a deeper level of our faculties than we normally use. One thing that's really important, I'm not advocating that clients should be in a deep trance during coaching. But what is important is that certain aspects of creating trance can be useful. Now, from time to time, with the right client in the right situation and with their permission, hypnosis as a coaching tool may be appropriate. Using hypnosis in coaching also relies on the coach having the appropriate skills and experience. It is essential to understand that our clients are not subjects to be used for experimenting. Experimentation with clients with techniques that we've not yet mastered crosses every ethical boundary we agree to as coaches. So that is just something to think about. Anytime we start talking about the use of hypnotic techniques, we have to start by discussing the unconscious mind. When I talk about the unconscious mind, I'm talking about the other than conscious mind, which exists outside our immediate rational consciousness. And I'm certainly not using that term in a psychological context. A popular metaphor for the unconscious mind is that of the iceberg, where the conscious mind is that little bit we see floating above the water, whereas the unconscious mind is the vast unknown that lies beneath the surface. In my use of the term, the conscious mind includes everything that we are aware of in this moment. It is what we see, it is what we rationalize, and it is what we process in terms of what we notice that is going on right now. The conscious mind is very sequential, it's linear, it's intellectual thinking, and it typically seeks analytical or cognitive outcomes from a limited set of information outputs limited to this moment. The conscious mind presumes we can understand problems and by doing that either solve it or eliminate it. The unconscious mind is a reservoir of all of our experiences, all of our feelings, all of our thoughts, all of our urges, and all of our memories. The unconscious mind multitasks, it's intuitive, it connects experiences, it connects thoughts, feelings, and ideas. The unconscious mind is very literal, it transcends time and space, it has unlimited focus, and it continuously perceives what is happening around us and translates those feelings and emotions into a resource that in the future will guide us. The unconscious mind understands everything from a literal basis and will evaluate everything in terms of the filters of forget, distort, and generalize. Just to elaborate on that, when we encounter an unfamiliar situation, our unconscious mind will evaluate it immediately and categorize it as something similar to what we've experienced at a point, and that is what I mean with the generalization, or it will see this event as something inconsequential, so it's unimportant and you can just ignore it or forget it, or it can look at us and even though it's a new event that we've never experienced before, it will go and create an analogy to a similar event. that we've experienced in the past, and it will actually classify it with that, which is what we call distortion. All of this is just evolutionary protection, which allows us to rapidly assess situations so that we can activate our survival response if necessary. Let's think of an example of that. I don't know how many of you have got a driver's license and drive a car with a manual transmission. Over time, changing gears in a manual transmission becomes an unconscious response. You don't even think about it anymore. Your mind recognizes on an unconscious level that you would like to change gears, and automatically you will step on the clutch, automatically you will change gear to the extent where you almost might not even notice it anymore. The same thing if you drive into a traffic intersection. If the light is red, unconsciously you will step on the brake. If the light is green, unconsciously you might accelerate. If we bring this back to the coaching conversation, how we engage the unconscious mind is through hypnotic techniques. And what the hypnotic techniques does, it creates a light trance which allows your awareness to expand to not only focus on what you are conscious of in the present moment, but also to use that vast repository of experience that you've got accumulated in your unconscious mind. So let's look at the hypnotic cycle. Before we jump into this too deep, it is essential to understand that hypnosis and light trance does not create a loss of self-control. Trance is actually a very natural state that we all experience several times a day. Simple examples of those, I don't know if anyone here have ever caught themselves in the middle of a meeting daydreaming about something that has nothing to do with the meeting that you are in. Or the driving trance, where you would sort of drive through several intersections without consciously noticing whether the lights were green or red. And then afterwards, you start thinking, my goodness, that last intersection I went through, was the light actually green or not? Well, the good news is it was green because your unconscious mind keeps on noticing these things that happen around you. And when necessary, it alerts you to the fact that there's a red light and you need to stop. So you will get this trigger that comes into your consciousness. Other examples of light trance is when you get lost in your own thought, when your partner is discussing this weekend's gardening plans or a shopping trip, especially if the gardening or the shopping is not the most favorite thing on your agenda. A hypnotic state or trance happens anytime when the attention is focused away from the external reality to some sort of internal memory, thought, imagination, or emotions. And I'll show you how easy this is. As you are sitting wherever you are, if you just notice for a moment how the chair that you are sitting in is supporting you. And then on your next in breath, just follow your breath into your lungs and just notice how that air feels going down all the way through your throat into your lungs. And notice the thoughts that you have when you start noticing the air in your lungs. And as you are breathing, just notice how the rest of your body feels. So, what I'm doing here is I am just taking your attention away from everything around you, and I'm taking it to a space inside of you. Now, according to Milton Erickson, the renowned psychiatrist who inspired much of NLP's body of work on hypnosis, he said hypnosis is the state in which learning and openness to change is most likely to occur. According to him, he said, when you are in a hypnotic or trance state, that is the best state to be in to either change or learn. He actually later amended this quote and he said it's actually the only state in which you can learn. If that is true, we want our coaching clients to get to that state in our coaching sessions, because that is the state in which they will be open to learning and transformation. If you look to the right of this slide that I'm showing you on screen, there's the representation of the consciousness that we typically try to induce in a hypnosis session. And I'm going to talk specifically here about hypnosis, and then a little bit later, we'll talk about how we can apply that to coaching. We start off on the left side of that cycle, and typically in hypnosis, we will do what is called an induction. What the induction does, it slowly moves the client from a conscious awareness to a trance state. In this induction, a skilled hypnotist will use trance deepening techniques to gradually strengthen the trance state. And at certain points, he will induce little fluctuations to lift the trance state to a more conscious state and then immediately deepen the trance again. And as paradoxical as that sounds, just by doing that, it causes a much more rapid development of deep trance. And this technique is called fractionation. When the client reaches deep trance or a deep state of hypnosis, they enter a state of suggestibility. And typically, that's where the hypnotist will do the change work that the client wants. And of course, if I'm talking here about hypnosis, I'm talking about the kind of hypnosis that are used for therapeutic purposes and change work. In traditional hypnotherapy, when we talk about the state of suggestibility, we are talking about at that point suggesting alternate behaviors or eliminating unwanted behaviors or adapting existing behaviors in order to achieve a goal or an outcome. It can also be suggestion by positive affirmation. If you take the time to go onto YouTube and you research hypnosis sessions, the majority of the hypnosis sessions that you will find on focuses on positive affirmation to support states, to support conviction, to support behavior change. In that suggestible state, it does not mean that the client will do things that is against their will or their nature. Part of the unconscious mind is about protecting us against doing things that are dangerous for us. So if someone receives suggestions that are against their will or their nature, what often happens, the person will either ignore it or will wake up from this hypnotic state. But if we've done a hypnosis session based on change work, once that change work is complete, the hypnotist will gradually bring the client out of the trance state. The deep trance state is also not a permanent one. And should a hypnotist choose not to bring a client out of hypnosis, it will happen naturally. You can't get stuck in hypnosis. On the very right side of the screen, you will also see I make reference there to a number of frequency states. Now, the interesting thing is our brain actually has brain waves, which indicates a certain frequency at which the brain waves is cycling at. And this is actually measurable by EEG. And that also can indicate for us trance state. You will notice there I start at the top with beta brainwaves, and that indicates a state where we are alert and when we are capable of active thinking. And that frequency sits somewhere in the region of about 12 hertz to 27 hertz. You are active, you're alert, and you are capable of active thinking. In that state, you are typically capable of active conversation, making decisions, solving problems, focusing on tasks, and of course, learning new concepts. When we go to alpha brainwaves, now we're going a little bit deeper into a trance state. And that indicates a state where we are physically and mentally relaxed. And typically, we're sort of looking there at a frequency range of between 8 and 13 hertz. You're awake, but you're relaxed. And alpha brainwaves are easily observed, and it was actually the first to be discovered, which is why beta is actually at a higher range than alpha. Alpha brainwaves become detectable when the eyes close and the body and the mind relaxes. This is typically observed when you're doing active relaxation techniques like yoga. It's a state that you are in just before you fall asleep, or it's the state where you are creative and artistic. Then we go a little bit deeper and we get to theta brainwaves. And that indicates a state where we are deeply relaxed. Now, the frequency band that we're looking at there is between 3 and 8 hertz. In that state, you are capable of creativity, deep insights, dreams, and of course, reduced or altered states of consciousness. Your theta brainwaves indicates deep relaxation, and it occurs more frequently in highly experienced meditation practitioners or people that have been induced into a state of hypnosis. Now, research has also shown a positive association of theta waves with increased memory, creativity, and psychological well-being, which is why meditation is such a great practice for us to keep us grounded, to keep us psychologically well. Most frequently, your theta brainwaves are detectable when we are dreaming in our sleep, but they also appear in deep meditation or if you are really off on a very nice daydream. Delta brainwaves, that typically indicates a state where we are asleep and dreaming. Now, the frequency at which this occurs is below 3 hertz. Now, these are the slowest of all of the brain waves, and they are strongest when we are enjoying restorative sleep in a dreamless state. Now, delta brainwaves occur at a state which stimulates healing and rejuvenation. And this is why it's so important for us to get enough sleep every night. If your brain doesn't go down to delta level, you are going to have limited rejuvenation and healing. Another brainwave frequency that I have not indicated here is gamma brainwaves. Gamma brainwaves indicate a state of heightened perception, and the frequency at which that occurs is between 32 and 100 hertz. So it is a lot higher than beta. Gamma brainwaves indicates a peak mental state when there's simultaneous processing of information from different parts of the brain. And if you look at gamma brainwaves on a brain scan, it's almost like almost all of the parts of the brain lights up and becomes active. Now, gamma brainwaves are unusual, and its observation often occurs in long-term meditators like Buddhist monks. So that's not something that's really common, so I didn't put that on this slide. In hypnosis, what we are aiming to do is to gently take our clients all the way from the beta brainwave frequency that they often arrive in, all the way down through alpha, all the way down to theta. So we aim to get them to a state of extreme relaxation where their creativity and their mental state becomes sufficient that we can start doing change work with them and that there's the minimum of conscious resistance. What I have here is just a very general representation of the coaching process. If you coach or if you sit down with a coach, this is in broad strokes the format that a coach will take you through. The first part starts at the top with the opening. And the opening is simply a stage where the coach can meet the coaching client where they are at. Often, coaching clients show up, they are very excited or they are in a state of agitation. And it is important for the coach to meet them at that level and bring them to a state of presence, because to try and help people in an agitated or highly active state, the conscious mind is going to be interrupting the whole time, and the resistance to change is going to be high. Plus, the reflection and problem solving that we want to take them through in this process is going to be obstructed by the mind being all over the place. The opening is also a great space where the coach establishes rapport and creates trust with the coaching client. And the importance of bringing them to the present moment, there's just something I want to add to that. If someone's mind is stuck on the past, something that happened a week ago, a month ago, 5 minutes ago, they are dealing with a memory, because the thing that they are upset about or agitated about has already passed and it exists only as a memory in their mind. And the interesting thing is, the further we get away from a memory, it changes. Because on the one hand, we grow as human beings, but on the other hand, you start looking at that memory from different perspectives as well. The other issue is if someone shows up and their mind is in the future, where they are constructing either a negative scenario that they are expecting, and a negative scenario often manifests as fear, or they are so busy focusing on something that has not yet happened that they create a total projection of what that is going to be. Now, as coaches using hypnotic techniques, we can use that. But before we start doing any kind of problem solving, we want to bring them back to this moment, the present moment. The next stage is contracting. Contracting is where you would reach agreement with your coaching client about what it is that you're going to be working on in the session. In contracting, you typically would look at the size of the problem or the change that they are bringing to you as a coach, and there would be some negotiation, because saving the world is probably an outcome that's bigger than one coaching session. As a coach, you also have to negotiate and contract with your coaching client an outcome that is achievable within the time frame of the coaching session. Coaching sessions also have very different durations. I've seen people run with 30-minute coaching sessions, or most commonly, most people would work through an hour. I like to work through a coaching session of about 90 minutes because that gives you enough time to explore issues of a sizable nature. But the coach has to understand how much time is available and contract with the client an outcome that's achievable within that duration. Then you'll go into the exploration phase. And in the exploration phase, you will explore the problem, you will explore the possibilities, and ultimately you would explore what would be the most likely resolutions or action points that can be prioritized in the next part of the coaching session, which is actioning. So the exploration is a loosely constructed conversation that is typically facilitated by the coach through questioning, and it's about exploring the problem, exploring the circumstances around the problem or around the change that the client wants to make. And then once you've explored the problem or the changes to the proper extent, you would go into actioning and you would decide, okay, what would be the actions that we're going to take beyond this coaching session to resolve this problem or to create the change. Then the next stage is insights. And in insights, what you want to do is you want the client to share any insights or learnings that they've made. And the interesting thing about them sharing the insights is they are repeating back the lessons they've learned and the plans they've made. And one thing we know about the unconscious mind, it likes repetition. So if they commit to an action, if you repeat it back to them, and if they give you the insights and the learnings and they repeat what they are going to do, you get that repetition. And then finally, we'll go into closing, and closing is just simply about wrapping up the session in such a way that your coaching client go back in a state of energy and motivation. As a coach, it is very important to plan out the structure of your coaching session ahead of time. So typically in the opening, this is almost where, if we borrow some techniques from hypnosis, this is where you want to start slowing down the brainwaves. You want to get them to that optimal state somewhere between theta and alpha, where we know that they can increase their decision making, where they can be creative, where the resistance against change will disappear. So in the opening, you can already start by creating a mindful presence. And I'm going to teach you a little technique on how to do that in a few minutes from now, but not yet. So the first thing is to bring your coaching client to a state of mindful presence. And that already creates an hypnotic state or a trance state in your coaching client. And then, of course, setting an intention. That's a great way to start a coaching session. I have a practice every morning. I wake up, I reserve about 10 minutes of time on my own. And in that 10 minutes, the first thing that I do is I set my intention. And my intention is consciously deciding on how I am going to experience the day. And I'm going to invite you, if you think about setting an intention for the day and you're saying, oh, another day under lockdown here in South Africa, I can't go anywhere, this is going to be a terrible day. If you set an intention like that, your whole day will be colored by that intention. And everything that you experience will be experienced through that window. Whereas if you wake up in the morning and you set an intention, for example, like, what a wonderful day. I'm really curious about what I am going to learn today that is going to be new and exciting. And just simply setting an intention like that for your day creates an expectation of how this day will go. And in the same way, when you do it in a coaching session, you can set the window through which that coaching session is experienced. One of the things that positive psychology have taught us is that if you start from an expectation of gratitude, you often will create change in your life that are positively motivated rather than negatively forced upon you. So intention setting is a very important part of the coaching session. The other effect that you get with setting an intention is For you to set an intention, you must experience that intention. Even as you guys are sitting there listening to me talking to you, just imagine for a moment that you want to experience the rest of this day with happiness. So, what does happiness look like for you? How does it feel? How does your body feel when you are happy? How are you towards other people when you are happy? And here's the interesting thing, if you are willing to evaluate what just happened, in order to think what it's like to be happy, you actually have to become happy, which is an altered state. So there's an hypnotic technique that I just demonstrated to you. The next step is to set an outcome. That's part of contracting. And although I'm not going to discuss in detail today, what you would also do is you would link your outcome to the end state that someone would like to be in if they achieve that outcome. So, very similar to what I just did with you in terms of happiness, you would say to someone, okay, so if this outcome that we've agreed on, when you achieve this, what would it be like? And of course, the moment you say, what would it be like? For them to understand that, they have to access that state. So if they're going to be happy, if they're going to be motivated, they have to go to that state. And what is happening is we sort of now deepening the hypnotic state that they are experiencing. Then we get to exploring, and exploring, there's a couple of techniques that we can use, top of which is eliciting states. There we would really focus on how they would feel, what they would notice. So we would also expand their awareness. And then, if necessary, we would anchor those states. And to anchor a state is basically what we're doing is we're creating for them a trigger that upon firing that trigger, they will experience the state they want to be in. As you are working with them, as you are asking questions, it is important to revivify states. With other words, if their intention was gratitude or happiness, during the exploration phase, continuously saying, how will this contribute to your gratitude? How will this contribute to happiness? How would you feel if this happens? How would you feel if you do this change? How would you feel if you follow this idea? How much more gratitude will it bring to you? So there's that connection with all these states that they are experiencing and linking those positive states to the outcome that they want to achieve. Then we get to the actioning state. And in the actioning state, the client will now share with you what the actions they are going to do or follow beyond this coaching session. And this is where, as a coach, you want to amplify the states that they want to experience. If you do this, will you get that state of happiness? Will you get that state of gratitude? As you are sitting here now, imagine having done this action that you are committing to right now. How would you feel when it's done? How much gratitude will it give you? How much happiness will it give you? And what would it take to have double that gratitude or double that happiness? What about 10 times? How easy is it for you to feel 10 times as grateful, 10 times as happy, knowing that you've just done what you've committed to? And the interesting thing is, when you start amplifying like that, they have to access that amplified state for themselves. So it's almost they are already in the coaching session in an altered state, getting the reward that they will get when they do the action that they are committing to. And then in insights, as they are sharing their insights, looking for opportunities to revivify those outcome states, those amplified outcome states. So if they tell you about something they learned, doesn't that make you grateful? Doesn't that make you happy? How much happiness or gratefulness are you getting from knowing this? So it's really about emphasizing the states. And then in closing, and this is really important, is this is where you want to revivify energy and motivation. Because as a good coach, you want someone to leave your coaching session with a lot of energy and a lot of motivation. On the one hand, it's a little bit of a selfish one, because if someone leaves your session highly motivated and feeling really good, they also want to come back to the next coaching session. It also sets them up to really follow through on the commitments that they've made, plus the progress that they want to show you the next time that you meet in your next coaching sessions. These are simple techniques that you can either use for yourself or use with your clients. And the first one that I want to start with, and that is just about being able to breathe. If you think about it, if you take in a long in breath and a short out breath, you typically find that your energy levels pick up. So if you want to do a quick energy recharge for yourself, just take in a long in breath with a very short out breath. Typically, let's say a 4 count or 5 count in, and then a 1-2 count out. If you just want to bring yourself to a state of relaxation, you can do a breath that is equal parts in breath and equal parts out breath. So you can look at a 4-4 breathing, 4 counts in, 4 counts out. And that's a really nice way of just relaxing, coming to presence. But the interesting thing is if you change your breath to a shorter in breath and a long out breath, what you do is you create trance. I'm going to invite you to just follow along with me. So I'm going to count you in and out. And what I want you to do is just follow my count and just breathe with me. So on the next in breath, in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and just relax and let your breathing come back to normal. And something you may have noticed, breathing like that is after repeating it 2 or 3 times, you almost would have felt a slight dreamy state coming over you. So this is one of the easiest ways to just alter your state and alter your state to a more dreamlike state, which of course now starts taking us down to alpha and theta level brainwaves. And if you sit for breathing like this for a couple of moments, life gets pretty slow and interesting. And this is a really nice technique, especially if you have a client that shows up in an agitated state or anxious state or in an overactive state. And typically what you would do is you would sort of take them first to equal breathing, 4 in, 4 out, 4 in, 4 out. And once you see them slowing down to the level where they do that easily, then you can start taking them to the 4-8 breathing pattern, which will take them to a deeper state. Okay, so that's the breath. The next technique that I'm going to share with you is what we call the coach state. This is a technique I learned from Robert Dilts and Stephen Gilligan. The coach state is an acronym, and the C stands for centered, the O is for open, the A is for aware, the second C is for connected, and the H is for holding the space. And this technique is a very simple one, and I will facilitate you through an experience of this, and then what you can do is on your own time you can adapt this for your own use. So as you are sitting where you are, just recently having experienced that wonderful 4 in breath and 8 out breath, I would like you to just take a deep breath in and out, and take another deep breath in and out. And on your next deep breath, just breathe all the way to where you feel your center is. And take another deep breath in. Some people feel that their center is round about the belly button. Others feel it round about their lower back. Who knows where your center is, but you do. So just take another deep breath in all the way to your center, feeling centered. And I'd like to invite you to be open to whatever may arise. Often, when we work with coaching, there's emotions, there's feelings. And if you are open to those, they are opportunities for growth. And I would like you to invite you to be aware of all your senses. In this moment, what you are seeing, what you are hearing, what you are feeling. And be connected to all of the resources that you have, your conscious resources and your unconscious resources, but also knowing that you are connected not only to the resources within you, but also the resources around you, those resources that are present in others. And finally, I want you to give yourself permission to hold this space, this safe space within which you are safe and within which your learning can take place. And I also want you to hold this space not for yourself, but for anyone else you would like to invite into it. And just take another deep breath in and out. So, this is a lovely little meditation that just allows your coaching client not only to come to this moment of presence, but also to create the space within which they are ready and willing to make any changes or decisions or actions that they want beyond this session. The next little technique is actually a very simple one, and we've experienced it, so I'm just going to revivify it for you. I spoke a little bit earlier about happiness. I spoke about gratitude. So if you want to elicit a specific state from a coaching client, you can just simply say, think of a time when you felt or experienced happiness. And when you were happy, what did you see? What did you feel? What did you hear? What did you experience? And being happy, where did you feel that in your body? And tell me what it's like. And what would it be like if you were thinking or feeling or experiencing happiness right now? From what I said earlier, is that in order to understand a state, simply by remembering it, you have to enter that state. And by entering that state, you feel everything around it. Here's the other interesting thing is, if you're working with a coaching client and you say to them, okay, if you achieve this, how would you feel? And let's say the client says to you, that would make me feel powerful. And then you say, okay, but what is that like? What is it like to feel powerful? Now, here's the interesting thing. If the client says to you, I don't know, you're probably not going to get follow through, because if you don't know what a state is like, you cannot associate into it. If you can't associate it into it, it is not going to be something that you will use as a motivator. So it's really important that a client needs to be able to know what it feels like to be in a certain state. Then you can use it as a motivator. So some of the states that I will elicit from my coaching clients anyway are the states of motivation, energy, and commitment, because those are the states that I want them to go away with at the end of my coaching session. So it is important that somewhere in the session you elicit states for motivation. Think about a time when you were motivated. What was it like? When you had lots of energy, how did you feel that? When you feel like you are absolutely committed, what did that feel like? Where did you feel that in your body? And if you felt that right now, motivated, energized, committed, if you feel that right now, what are you going to do beyond this coaching session? So states is a really important part of coaching. And of course, in order to feel a state, you have to go into an altered state of consciousness, because you're working with a memory of that state, which is outside the presence. And the only way to access it outside of the presence is to go inside and to disconnect from the reality around you. So this is also a very hypnotic technique. Now, working with states, I've spoken about amplifying the states. I've spoken a lot about vivifying the states, which is having your client just experience that state again. There's also a technique for anchoring states, and anchoring is not a technique that I was planning on talking about today, but let me maybe spend a minute on it. So, as you are sitting there at home, what I want you to do, think about a time when you were really energized. And just take a moment, maybe even close your eyes, and just remember that time when you were really energized, when you felt on top of the world, like energy was just bubbling from every pore of your body. What was that like? How did you feel? And when you feel that energy, I want you to just take your ring finger on your left hand and your thumb and just press them together. Feeling that energy, pressing it together and letting go. And then I want you to think of another time when you were really energized. And if you remember how you feel that time, if you feel that energy bubbling up in your body, in that moment when you feel that energy state, just touch your ring finger on your left hand and your thumb together. And let's do it one more time. Think of another time, maybe in your childhood, when you felt like you were climbing the walls with energy. Remembering how that felt in your body. Remember how no one can slow you down. And when you feel that energy, just touch the ring finger and the thumb on your left hand together and let go. Okay, so let's just shake that off for a moment. And as you are sitting there, just take a deep breath in and out. Another deep breath in and out. And when you're ready, just take your ring finger from your left hand side and just touch your thumb and feel if that energy is still sitting in there. I'm hoping that you did feel a little bit of that energy. And this is just a way, and I literally gave you sort of a 2 minute version of something that we normally take about 15 minutes to really establish. But it's about almost like storing energy for a future time. So you can anchor this energy, and when you need it, you can access it. I'm very grateful that you made this time investment, not only for yourself, but with all of us on this call today. Thank you very much for showing up. I really appreciated you being here. And I look forward to meeting up with you again.